Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another in FIBA's podcast series. Today we're going to be talking about compliance leadership, and the challenges compliance leadership has in bringing issues to the bank executive office, the C-suite, and the board of directors. As we know, for those of us who are or have been compliance officers, we are a cost center. And we're always challenging everybody to try and do the right thing. And sometimes there's a little tension, and a healthy tension is good with the business line in our compliance function and being able to comply with all the regulations that have come out. You know, this last year and a half with COVID, our regulators, Washington, Congress have all been very busy in issuing new guidance and new regulations and even new laws that we have to deal with. And we have to educate our leadership in these matters so that they understand the importance. So we're going to have an interesting conversation and look forward to hearing the views of our special guest. So now I'll turn it over to our moderator, Harry Cupp. He is the Foreign Correspondent Bank Risk Manager at SunWest Bank and also the chair of FIBA's NextGen committee. Harry?
Thank you, David. So, as David mentioned, in our series of podcasts, we have a very interesting one today, and we have a very interesting guest. Our guest is Alexander Fortich. He is the BSA AML OFAC officer. And today we will be discussing a very important topic, a topic that is I find very interesting, very important, which is leadership in compliance. We're always talking about regulations and what we must do to meet expectations. But, part of us being able to do that really is us being able to lead our teams and understand that if we don't have a strong team from a risk management perspective, we won't be able to comply with our requirements, what our regulations require, and we won't be able to attract top talent. So Alex, if you'd like to make a brief introduction of yourself.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate the invitation. Harry, David, thank you for the intro. Those of you that don't know me, yes, my name is Alexander Fortich. It's okay to call me Alex, by the way. I've been in banking since I was probably like 18 years old, so 20 plus years, obviously. And I've managed also probably since I was 18 years old, managing since I was probably started in the grocery store industry as a customer service manager. Through the years, I've developed in different financial industries. I've also then obtained master's. I have an MBA from Nova Southeastern University. And most recently, I completed my Juris Master's degree at Florida State University. I'm currently working at U.S. Century Bank, as Harry mentioned, as the BSA AML officer. And I've been here for about 8 years, almost going on 9 years. So when it comes to management and leadership, I've been able to experience, a diversity of organizations on how to manage people and be a leader for everyone. So that's pretty much my intro. Right?
Alex is also the chair of the AML committee within FIBA. So let's begin with, I guess, a few questions. Like I said, Alex, I think for me, leadership is one of the most important topics. And really, like I said, in this industry or in any industry, if we want to succeed, being a leader affects us all, affects who we work with, not only who we report to, but those who report to us, which I think is very important. Like I said, having a successful team and a team that can really help you and being able to retain that talent requires serious leadership skills, requires being able to empower them, being able to help them grow, and then, allow them to do what they are best at. So with that in mind, why do you think it's important to be a leader?
Well, why it's important to be a leader is, for me, it's very meaningful for the simple fact that mentoring a group of individuals that want to grow and giving them empowerment makes me feel good. And also, I feel like I'm doing good for everybody that wants to progress in their careers. We all know that in compliance, our careers are always evolving. There's new things, new businesses, new organizations, new regulations that we need to follow. So when you're managing a group of 20 plus sometimes, and whether they're full-time employees, part-time employees, and even consultants that we have to deal with in this industry, leading a team is critical to having a successful compliance program. In compliance, there's so many regulations, and we're always thinking about the regulations. And I do think I'm a big believer that our job function is about 20 to 30% dealing with regulations and laws, but I think a majority of our the 70%, it's more with our team and dealing with our team and the interactions with everybody, so that you can make sure that you have a good, strong program, that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. People are learning new things that are happening. And me being the leader, I can sit here and talk all day and tell people what to do and be a micromanager, which I'm not, and I don't believe in micromanaging. But I think it boils down to where you need to give people a little bit of strength and power and their ability to want to learn. And as a leader, show that you want to invest in your employees. And I do that whether it's through offering them any FIBA certifications, for example, FIBA webinars or conferences like that. And showing them that they're not just stuck here inside a box, just doing alerts all day, giving them the opportunity to be able to explore other functionalities throughout the department. And I think that's part of, I think that's why for me, leadership is so important. It's like I said, I think it's 70 to 80% of my job is my team and making sure that they're happy as much as I can, with all the tools and resources that I have. And I think that's what makes me have a successful AML compliance program. Yes, we have policies in place. Yes, we have procedures in place. Yes, we have examiners and auditors that tell us that we do a satisfactory job. But honestly, all that would not be possible if I didn't have the team I have today. So,
I think you mentioned something really important, and it's that difference between being a boss and being a leader. Being a leader is empowering the people you're with. But being a leader is also learning to manage difficult situations and situations of conflict. And that can be, like I said, with people that report to you and people who you report to, senior management. And I don't think there is any place that lacks some sort of conflict. People are different. People have different personalities, come from different backgrounds, come from different experiences. So you have to create that harmony within your work as much as you can, right? So a lot of that is managing those conflict situations that sometimes we tend to avoid because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for us, or it's uncomfortable for the person who you're having that conversation with. And we tend to avoid it, but a lot of times we have to address it if we want to move forward, right? So what do you think, or what have been your experiences, or what kind of solutions do you think are to managing those conflict situations, whether it's people that report to you or senior management?
That's a good question, Harry. And I mean, there's always different levels of conflicts, There's very simple conflicts that can easily be nipped on the butt right away, simple meeting and discussions, and there's some that are a lot more technical where you may need to involve human resources. And I definitely use our human resources department, often when I feel I need to express how I'm going to handle a situation, making sure I handle it properly. Sometimes, even though the situation might happen at that very moment, I try not to tackle it at that very second. I kind of sit back, think about it, and kind of analyze how I'm going to handle the situation. Sometimes if I handle the situation, and again, this is me, I'm not speaking for everybody else, but sometimes handling the situation right on the heat of the moment is not the right opportunity. Things might not come out right. Maybe you miss something of the situation that happened and don't have all the facts at that very moment to make a judgment call. So for me, I always like to go get a breather, whether it's walking out, closing myself in my office and just think of the situation, maybe interviewing, the individuals involved separately. And then, once I've come up with the facts, I can then see how to plan out to solve the conflict. And again, when you work with a team, and I'm not necessarily saying that my team is always in a conflict, because they're not, but we do work in a department, by the way, that obviously we're known to close accounts. We're known to fight back on relationships that we don't want to do business with. So we could be seen as that department. Oh, look at that department. They're always closing accounts on us. They don't want to bother listening. And, thankfully, that's not the case here. We have excellent relationships with our front line. But that it could happen, it could happen. You're always going to trigger somebody's nerve on a relationship that it's very meaningful to them. So it's not just internal situations. I think there's also external situations that happen outside the department. And I've always educated my team that we still have to handle those situations in a very professional manner. Me as their manager, I'm going to back them up 100%. And I think that's something that's very important as a team leader, as a supervisor, is to make sure you back up your employees. Don't throw your employees under the bus in front of someone. If they did do something wrong and you feel it's something you may need to correct, I think the corrective action should be handled behind closed doors. Don't make that employee feel so bad in front of someone else when there's a conflict situation happening. You as a team leader kind of have to balance that out a little bit, and juggle a little bit. But at the end of the day, if you are going to do any type of corrective action, I would highly recommend to probably do it behind closed doors. Doing it in front of a group of people is just going to create more embarrassment, and you're probably not going to have as much respect from your employee in trying to solve a solution. And then they're not going to feel comfortable coming to you when they are involved in a conflictive solution. In a conflictive situation. So that's kind of how I would juggle that. And if I can explain any better, I mean, again, and every conflict has different levels of conflict, but it all depends. And I would definitely use your human resources. They're very knowledgeable, and they can also help you make sure. In today's world, there's a lot of legal stuff that can happen. And so if it's something pretty serious, you may want to run it by them first before you, execute as you had initially planned. And make sure that you yourself, especially if you're involved in the conflict yourself, make sure you're actually calmed down. Try not to do it at that very moment, and give it a break.
I would agree with you. And like you said, I think running it through HR to make sure that, you're making sure you're complying with company policy. And like you said, there's a lot of regulations out there, and there's a lot of legal framework that we have to navigate, especially in this environment, this industry. But again, if for some reason I think that if you don't get the support that you need from HR, or because that you may be in a work environment where HR may not be that knowledgeable in that part, or may not have all of that. I think it's important, for yourself always to be professional, and keep in mind that you have to maintain a professional environment. And regardless of the situation, an environment of respect is very important. That no matter what it is, you still have to maintain that professional environment. So I think that's always a good advice. So moving on to a very interesting topic is what the pandemic has caused, and how it has changed how we manage teams. Many of us had to go remote for a long time. Some of us still work remote, including me. From my experience, when we moved into digital, most of my team was already knew kind of what they had to do, right? So for us, it was actually a relatively easy transition. It was more of a continuation. You already know what to expect. Yes, there are some situations, and motivating employees during pandemic and things like that are what come into mind. But also, I can see challenges in a remote environment, maybe when there's a lot of turnover, and maybe in training a new employee, or maybe very specific situations. So I don't know, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what your experience has been, and any recommendations that you've learned through this process.
First of all, I mean, the pandemic for any leader in this world right now has been completely a new learning curve for all of us. I mean, none of us went to school on how to handle a pandemic from a leadership perspective. I don't think any of us even expected this. So I don't think anybody can say that they have 50 years of experience on how to deal and lead during a pandemic. So I guess we're going to be future leaders that are going to tell the younger generations how to how to work this out. But it definitely was challenging and for many aspects. You do have different styles of um, of generations that are okay with working from home. You have the older model, I guess, or the more vintage generation, to be able not to use such critical words, but the vintage generation where it's like you're not gonna, if you're not here, you're not working. So to find that balance, I think has been the biggest struggle. We're all working from home, obviously, and we've all been able to do very well thanks to technology. If this would have happened probably in the early 90s, I'm not sure how this would have worked, because obviously in the early 90s, Teams, Zoom, the laptops we have today did not exist and cannot handle probably what we're using them for today. And a lot of banks were still even using paper. Luckily, we've gone paperless in the last 3 to 5 years. But so those challenges, obviously, thankfully, technology helped us out a lot. But I think some of the bigger challenges that we're seeing today are how do you keep that team culture that you had prior to the pandemic still going today? And I think that's been a challenge. For me, it's been challenging. Obviously, yes, it's nice to have webcam conferences and have meetings at least once or twice a week or as much as possible. Still continue to have those celebrations, even though you're not doing birthday celebrations, for example, live. Try your best to still have them and maintain them on video calls. So I think those have been some of the challenges. Training, I agree with you, Harry. When you starting a new hire under this pandemic, it's so difficult to explain, man. I really, at least me personally, I like to have that person in front of me and training at least for a few weeks face to face, and until you feel comfortable and that employee, that new hire feels comfortable to be able to go work on their own. You still want to have a little bit of that human interaction with that person. First of all, it's the welcoming process. You want the employee to feel special, especially the new hire, and to feel like he's part of the team. If you just walk into a department that is completely working offsite and you're going to start your first day working from home and they're just talking to you through a video conference, that personal touch is still not there 100%. At least that's my personal opinion. And by the way, I'm in the middle generation, so I'm not 100% for the stay at home, and I'm not also 100% for the full time. So understand that I'm in between, but I still feel you need that human interaction. So I guess thanks to technology, we've been able to kind of have a decent balance on that. I think also in our industry, especially in compliance, it's very common to see banks having their compliance departments working offsite. And this was pre-pandemic. I mean, I know that there's banks that have done that, and they've been able to manage it well. I have some employees that prefer working on site. They want to be seen. They want to grow. They feel that if they're working from home, they're not seen enough. Maybe they get missed, or opportunities for training or for expanding their knowledge or careers get pushed to the side because they're not, it's somebody that we're not seeing every day. And so I do have some employees that they want to come in as much as possible and they prefer working on site. And I respect that. I respect that. And then you have the ones that are okay with working from home that have added benefits, which I respect that too. It's another benefit, as you know, in this industry, the turnover is constant, especially here in South Florida. It's a very competitive industry. So if you can take advantage of the situation and use it as an added benefit for your team, then great, But definitely it has been a big learning curve for all of us. We continue using technology today. I'm sure, Harry, even visiting clients, yes, it's much easier through video conference, but there's nothing like having that human interaction and still trying to have at least a lunch once a month, whether it's at a park or trying to follow some of the CDC guidelines as best as possible, and still continue to build that team culture that you have, and motivate your employees. I know a lot of us like to work from home too because you're in shorts all day or sandals and a t-shirt. And that's great, but I think we all know that after a while it gets a little like too repetitive, and it's nice every now and then to throw on a suit and feel like you're walking through the door of the bank, with your suit on and nice shoes and stuff like that, instead of feeling sloppy all the time. So, I think finding ways and opportunities, whether it's having a virtual happy hour versus just having a virtual conversation, just like you and I are having a conversation like this. There's times that we'll tell, I'll call a meeting, and the meeting is just, they think it's probably going to be about production, and it's not. It's just to let them start chit-chatting. And honestly, when you do a meeting, let's say 9 a.m., everybody gets on, and I wait a little bit. I don't get on at 9. I'll get on like at 9:05. And when I get on, all I hear is like everybody just chit-chatting away. And that's all I want to hear. I'm not doing a meeting for production. I just want to hear them talk so that they can see each other and talk to each other. So you just have to be creative, man. It's being creative, testing out certain situations, talking to one another, not just inside your network, but outside your network. Like I can probably call you and say, "Hey, Harry, what are you doing, man? Like, give me some ideas, man. I'm out of ideas. What are you doing to your team?" So I think even us as leaders trying to help each other out is important. I know that from a CEO level, I can hear my CEO tell me that they all call each other. Although they're competitors, at the end of the day, they're still human beings, and they talk to each other about what is your bank doing, what is your bank doing, and so if there's that communication at the CEO level, I mean, why couldn't there be that communication between all of us here as leaders? So.
No, I agree with you 100%, and that interaction. I think we're meant to have that interaction, all of us, right? And if you're at home alone, it can make that feeling of the pandemic worse, and that's why just meetings like this that we're having, you and I, it definitely makes makes it easier. And then again, communicating, we talk. Alex, you and I talk once in a while, and we talk about sometimes compliance stuff if we need to. So that's a great communication. And I think, like you said, if we were in the 90s, I don't think I don't know what would have happened. I mean, the show always goes on, but it would have been interesting. And I think you're right. And one of the points that I think you're right, and it's harder. And I can say it from experience. For example, I recently changed jobs, right? And I was working remote because of the pandemic, and now I'm working remote again. But because I was able to, visit, other people within my organization, meet the offices, meet the people. I work remote mostly because my headquarters is in another state. But traveling and meeting and getting some of that in-person connection, in-person training, in-person information about, my company, that definitely helps, and that makes it completely different. And then now that I go back to working remote, at least I have that, right? And you build that trust, you build that connection from the beginning, which allows you to better do your work remotely. So yeah, that's very interesting. So another very interesting topic is, and I guess it's in line also with this, and in line with, again, continuation. How do you keep your employees motivated? Whether it's, we have two situations here. We have, for example, the pandemic, and you're losing that touch, that seeing other people and that interaction. So, in a way, you want to keep people motivated on that. And then you also have, individuals that have maybe been in your company for a while. And, at first everything is, everything's new, everything's different. But also, as years progress, you have to keep those employees motivated. And there's a lot of employees that need that feel to progress, to see new things, to do things different, because they want to grow. And, how are you able to, motivate employees and, avoid maybe, going to a different institution. If they go for a better position, it is what it is, and it's good for them. They grow, but you also want to try to retain them as much as possible, because you want to retain your talent as much as you can. And one of the hardest things is retaining talent, because talent will always want more. Talent will always want to succeed. Talents will always want to grow. So how do you maintain that motivation?
Harry, talent is very difficult to retain. I mean, especially in our industry here in South Florida, as you know, there's a lot of competitive banks, as I mentioned before. So that is something that's very challenging. But you do the best you can as a leader. I remember back in the days and during my young leadership days, when somebody would resign on me, I remember getting upset or like frustrated over it, and I guess I saw it more as a failure. I saw myself as a failure, I guess. And I've learned through the years now that I've been managing for such a long time that it's not failure. Um, it's not anything that I did wrong. It's just that's how it is. That's this industry and this business that we're in. All I can do is keep my head up high and know that I did everything for that individual, and that the next step that they're taking is because of opportunities that I've hopefully helped them get and help them and train them, give them certifications, motivate them to learn certain new things. And that's why they're chosen to succeed. And I look back today, and a lot of the people that are no longer working with me right now in U.S. Century Bank and have moved on to other job functions or have all been very successful. Nobody's come back to tell me, what, I completely failed. Everybody's been a complete success. So, I started looking at it from a positive perspective and saying, they're obviously moving on, but, they're doing better. And I'm proud to say that I was part of that success that they've had. So I think to motivate your employees, I think you need to give them some empowerment sometimes. I think you have to give the opportunity to give them trainings, certifications, show them that you're willing to invest in them, excuse me. You also have maybe some employees that want to learn some leadership stuff that actually have the ability to lead. So give them the opportunity to explore certain leadership stuff. It's okay to delegate work. I believe you need to delegate. There's no way I can do everything. There is definitely no way I can do everything. It has to be delegated, whether it's logistics of a system or a monitoring software. And sometimes you might think you're throwing them to the wolves, but I have employees that probably never touched a monitoring system in their life, and I want them to, and I give them the opportunity to, and explain to them that they're going to make mistakes, but out of those mistakes, they're going to learn things that's going to benefit them forever. You and I know implementing any kind of a system, whether it's a monitoring system, a KYC system, takes time, takes knowledge, takes experience, takes room for error. You need to fail sometimes in order to get the system up and running. So those are all things that I learned. That's how I got to where I'm at today. So I think giving other employees that opportunity to also experience those situations. Not too long ago, I had an employee mentor someone, and a new hire, and as they're mentoring them, I saw they did such an awesome job in the mentorship and their leadership towards mentoring this new hire, that I gave that employee the opportunity to do the 90-day evaluation for that employee. Obviously, I oversee that 90-day evaluation, but I wanted that employee who was the mentor to feel like, oh wow, he's asking me to do the 90-day evaluation. So, this is a big step. This is a big step to leadership, and everybody here knows that for me, evaluations are very important in management. Another opportunity to motivate and take the opportunity to teach others is through the evaluation. When you have those evaluation meetings, you should use that opportunity to, congratulate them if they're doing a good job, or if they need help with something. That is the opportunity for you to coach them and get them to that next level and get them the tools and resources they need to be successful. So I definitely think that evaluations are an important factor in motivating. Besides celebrating, and we're big here in celebrating, and if anybody's ever worked with me, we try our best to always celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, or whatever the case might be. I have employees I've known for a very long time, seen them from getting married to having kids, so I think all those are opportunities for celebration also. So good times and bad times, we're here together more than we are sometimes at home. So you need to make this feel like home sometimes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I recap two of those important points. One, I think it's empowerment, and that really will help you retain talent. Like you said, it's impossible to manage everything. And from my experience, what I've seen is empowering people really motivates them, and you a lot of times become surprised of how much they can accomplish. So it's a benefit for you. It's a benefit for them. They grow. Your organization benefits, you benefit. And the second thing is I think those evaluation reports are also extremely important. And Why? Because I think it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, yes, like you said, to congratulate, but it's also, I think, an opportunity to, like you said, work with those individuals that are maybe having trouble or that need resources, and really be able to talk to them, and more than be like, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. It's more of understanding what's happening. Maybe it could be that they're lacking a tool or lacking knowledge in something very specific. It could be a number of things. And I think, what those evaluation reports do is give you that opportunity where you're not just, hey, calling you up and they're maybe getting defensive, thinking that you're calling them out on something. It's they know that it's a space for that, and it's a space for you as the leader to communicate and to help your employee on what they need. So those are great points.
And two things here, Harry, that you just mentioned. You said, you'd be surprised, what they can do through empowerment. And I agree with you 100%. You'd be surprised. But what I've learned the most lately is I think they get surprised that they actually were able to do it, which is, to me, is the most rewarding part.
Yes.
If I'm giving them the opportunity to do that, it's because I know they have the ability of doing it. They just don't see it. A lot of times employees don't realize that they have that capability. And when they finish the project or the assignment or the task that was given, and they come to tell you, I can't believe I did that. And I'm like, yeah, I knew you had the capability of doing it, but to see that they're surprised from that's probably the rewarding part of the situation. So I wanted to mention that. And the other part that I did want to mention that you just said now about evaluations, and I agree with you 100%. To me, evaluations that is the pivotal moment to make sure you recap the year. But it's also very important to acknowledge them throughout the year. There's times that I'm driving on the way home and I'm stuck on traffic, and I'll just send random text messages to some of my employees. Hey, great week. Thanks for everything. Nice job on this. Emails, Teams messages. Feel free to use GIFs. Like sometimes they want to see those things, or just walking across the department and just say, great job, or nice work, or how's it going? And I mean, when you walk in the morning saying good morning, speaking to them, we're all human. So, I try my best not to walk in and just seem like a snob and close my door and not deal with anybody. That definitely does not work, by the way, at all. And, I've always treated everybody fairly. And whether it's the janitor, the person that cleans here versus obviously the executives, I still treat them the same. They still get my good morning. They still get my how you doing, and so on and so forth. So, I think those are two important factors I wanted to add to that.
And like you said, it's not just the once a year in the evaluation. One thing you have to make sure is that you're giving constant feedback. And when someone does something right, make sure you do it. You think it's silly sometimes, but it's not. It really is acknowledgement that they did something right. And sometimes they'll say to me, like, I remember they say, hey, good job, right? It's just an example. It's just my job. No, there's many ways that people can do your job. And if you're doing something correct, it's my job to acknowledge that you're doing correct. Just like it's my job to acknowledge if something's not being done correct. But if something's being done correct, even if it's a simple good job, it's rewarding to them, and it's rewarding to everyone. And they understand that what they're doing is a good, it's a good job. It's something that is maybe more than expected.
Agree.
So I think just to wrap it up, what advice can you give to those in leadership today and the future leaders?
I can give a lot of advice, but respect is very important for me, and loyalty. I had a teacher in 6th grade, and she always went by the golden rule, and to her the golden rule was very important in life lesson and treating others how you wish to be treated. And I think it's very important, if you want to earn that respect from your employees, is to treat them the same way. I would never treat them, or I hope I don't treat them in any way that they would feel that they're any less. And I want them to know that we are successful because of all of them. It's not me. I don't have to go to the board and shine. If I go to report something to the board that someone in my department did, they're going to get 100% credit for it. I don't have to sit there and go to the board, oh, look what I did. I don't need to do that. I I can always go to the board respectfully and say XYZ person did this, and because of them, we're saving this amount of money, or because of them, they found this type of activity, and so I think it's a matter of respect and earning that respect from your team. And I'm gonna have to use the word respect a lot in this situation, but and listen, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna tell you right now, I am not perfect. But it is something that I try my best to work on always as a leader. And stand up for your team. If you watch any football, and look at the quarterback and the coaches, and sometimes when I'm watching football, I feel the way that they feel, and having that team, and making quick decisions, and doing what's best for your team, and making sure your team shines bright all the time. So that's probably some of the feedback I can give. I mean, you can go on talking about management for hours. I know this is a short podcast, so I don't want to take up a lot of the time, but I definitely will leave you with that.
You touch on an excellent point, and it's giving credit where credit is deserved. Whether you're talking to the board or whoever it is that respect. And like you said, you earn that respect. So giving that respect and acknowledging, not taking credit when someone else did it is the best way you can respect those individuals and help them grow. So, I mean, I agree with that 100%. And, thank you, Alex. This has been a great podcast.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on, by the way, Harry. I appreciate it.
David, any last words?
No, thank you, Harry. Thank you, Alex, for sharing your perspectives. Alex, interesting because, of course, you are young, but you've had a long career already. So I think you've picked up and shared with our audience some very good lessons. Always keep it professional. That is extremely important from the get-go. You want to be professional and create that team environment, because at the end of the day, it's a team. This is one institution under one name, under one umbrella. So you have to encourage that fact. And you do that how? Communication. I think, Alex, you hit on all of the key points there. And communication, not just within the department, but with the other departments. Conveying that message, getting that message across that you are a team and you all need to work together to make it better. I like your idea of a virtual happy hour. I think that's a great idea. Probably not enough people are doing it, but it is a great way to keep your people, engaged. They still feel like, even though they're working remotely from home, that they are part of a team. They are part of an institution. I also like your comment about the first time somebody resigned, somebody left, and you felt like you were the failure. But no, people have career paths. People are looking for new challenges. So that's not on you. And really it's as much empowerment and as much education as you might give them, they still may seek other avenues. So that's one of the lessons, as you said, learned as a leader. Now, employee leaving is not a failure on your part. So I think, you both shared a lot of great perspectives for our audience, whether they're, NextGen, just starting out in the industry and understanding how to work in the environment, or whether you're in leadership and learning those lessons of how to manage not only a team, but to manage your interactions with executives. So thank you both again. To our audience, check back. This is part of a series, so you'll be seeing announcements on other podcasts to come, and I'm sure they'll be just as interesting as this one. So everybody stay safe, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.